Hi, everyone. I'm James Garbutt.
And I'm Denny Dumas.
And this is the Garbutt Dumas Real Estate Podcast. Happy New Year, 2021, the year of the townhouse. Potentially the year of detached and the townhouse. But today we're going to talk about townhouses. Why? Because they are incredibly popular. And in this fall, it's been highlighted, the demand for them far outweighs what the supply is and where the supply is going.
Totally.
In the short term. So, Denny, just in short, how about you explain what is a townhouse? How does it differ from a condo?
A townhouse, usually, there's a few different types of complexes of townhouses.
Apartment. Condo is one of those terms that we associate with apartment, but I think it is a broader term. So,
hey, that's actually a great question. What's the difference between a condo and an apartment?
Oh, geez.
I always call them condos.
Well, I believe condos is a broader category that may include townhouses in some parts of the world. But I think, don't correct me on this. This is a rough start if none of this is true. But over here, Greater Vancouver, let's just think condo means apartment.
Agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Townhouses usually have a front door. Often it's multiple floors of living. Often townhouse complexes do, which keeps maintenance fees low, which a lot of people like, is they do not have common hallways. They do not have elevators. Lots of them don't have underground parkades. But essentially a townhouse is you get your own front door.
Yeah.
And
separate
most
entry.
of the time you have living space on multiple levels.
And there is a bit of a stretch of what certain developers classify as townhouses closer to the downtown core. Yeah. As you get out of the city, you get more of that row style side-by-side sort of look, out in Langley, Fraser Valley, Tri-Cities. Townhouse is just basically neighbors attached to both walls on either side. It can be a duplex, it can be a triplex. It is a bit of a broad category. But in the city, you can get properties that are classified like townhouses, but feel more like apartments sometimes. So it is a bit one of those categories that is a bit gray, but think separate entry and shared walls with a neighbor. Why are they popular? Because they're generally, there's a lot of 3 bedrooms out there, and typically it's going to young families. I think the typical path of someone working their way up in real estate is going from condo to townhouse to house. Although nowadays, a lot of people, I don't know if are going to make that leap from a townhouse to a house. And it's apparent that we need more townhouses to accommodate these young families. Mm-hmm. So things to consider when buying a townhouse. I mean, you mentioned, Denny, lower strata fees, larger space, townhouse-only complexes, but there are definitely some exceptions to that. I can't help but think of, say, 22 East Royal in Victoria Hill as one of them, where, like many townhomes out there, you get townhomes at the base of towers, and when that happens, they're kind of sharing the expense of the elevators and the amenities and heating up the hallways. And they're considered kind of, from a unit entitlement and strata fee perspective, a giant condo, which means that they're usually left with an enormous strata fee. And so in some cases where you get these townhouses at the base of towers, where there's maybe a dozen of them or 6 of them, or depending on the development, the strata fee in a townhouse only complex may be $300 or $400 a month, and those ones might be 6 or 7 or 8, depending on the size. So, feedback to developers, try to separately classify this unit entitlement or for townhouses in those developments, because it does devalue them. And if you look at any townhouse with a, call it north of 700 strata fee a month, they're usually selling for a much lower price per square foot.
It makes them tough to resell too. Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about 22 East Royal specific, or 15 East Royal and 11 Royal.
Yeah, Oh, sorry. Yeah,
15
you're right.
And 11
it's
row.
between the two. Yeah, sorry. Correction.
Those townhouses, there's been a couple that have come up this year, and one of them they're like 2,200 square feet. So when you're thinking of that building specifically, 1,000 square foot condo, this townhouse would have a 2.2 times strata fee, which climbs. Yeah. This one, I think, had a $900 strata fee, and they were redoing their insurance at the time, so they're expecting it to go over 1,000, and that really makes it tough to resell. And then you get into these problems, developers, this is a way we can avoid these things. Then you get into these problems like this specific complex, where now the townhouses are trying to separate themselves from the 2 towers and pay separate strata fees just to try to keep that in a reasonable range. Like, there is no reason that a 2,200 square foot townhouse should not be worth around $1 million today in New Westminster in that location with that amount of space. It essentially is a 4-bedroom, except for the strata fee.
Yeah.
That is literally the only, and that property was listed at $799, which is extremely undervalued in terms of the actual space and the space that you get. And it wasn't selling. I think it did end up selling around the $780 mark, but it was on the market for 2 or 3 months.
I think we should kind of translate that $900 a month strata fee is like $250,000 of mortgage payment a month, equivalent. So that kind of adds to that. That's where the correction goes. But
totally.
Just in general, I mean, any realtor that works with buyers that over a period of time recognizes that certain buyers will just rule out a property if it has a strata fee that high. They won't even look at it. So it does diminish the buyer pool as well. It's the desperate families that will give it a chance. Other things, age, pros and cons of old versus new. I think we should kind of address the trend of townhouses getting skinnier and stacked.
Yeah.
I like, it depends on where, of course. I mean, every city has a different offering for townhomes. But you know, when I look at, say, Burnaby, for example, now it depends if you're a young professional without kids that might want to be by Brentwood at one of the smaller townhouses that is 1,000 to 1,300 square foot close to SkyTrain. But if you genuinely want space, you know, Burnaby East, for example, Burnaby South do have some larger places off Rumble and Burnaby East Crest, where you can get a little more bang for your buck. 2,000 square foot places that are similar price points to the Tri-Cities. But you know, New West, most of our townhouses are in Queensborough, and they're sporadically throughout. And there's a lot of townhouse zoning in the future official community plan for New West, but there's just not enough of them yet. And I don't think they're going to be developed at the pace that we need them.
100%.
So old versus new, Denny. Any comment on what to look for in old condos or old townhouses and things to consider there versus new when you look at some of our experiences in, say, Port Moody and Tri-Cities?
Totally. Yeah, we've done podcasts on like what to look for when buying into an older strata. And so like all of that applies. You mentioned the Burnaby Crest, Burnaby East area. There's a lot of late 1980s, early 1990s townhomes there that are coming up on larger potential work to the strata. Mm-hmm. So when looking at those types of properties, you're going to want to know if the roof has been replaced, you know, what type of plumbing. If it's a 80s and 90s complex, the likelihood of having poly B running through the complex is high. I've seen a bunch of those in the last, well, in Poco and in Burnaby in the last couple months. I had someone buy into a 90s complex a couple of years ago that had to redo all the paving throughout the complex. So like things like that you don't necessarily have to worry about for 15 or 20 years when you're buying newer.
I think we should mention in certain areas like Port Moody, Tri-Cities, and this goes everywhere. The much older townhome complexes, say the 80s and earlier ones that are a little more spaced out, you know, they usually have larger backyards and a driveway in their own garage. Those ones can be candidates for developers to assemble too. You know, they're usually on quite a bit of land, and the density is much lower than they build today. And so some of them, although they may look run down, they might be teed up for a developer trying to acquire them, like, for example, the Coronation Park development out in Port Moody. Old versus new. If you need more space, don't hesitate to go old, but recognize that not all older complexes are maintained the same. And we'll get into some of our favorite complexes in a bit. The other thing to look for, I guess, just one thing to consider is keep an eye out for an illegal space in townhouses. Oftentimes a lot of townhouses have tandem garages, and oftentimes people will finish half of it as finished floor space. And that's not allowed, but ask for forgiveness, I guess, if you need the extra room.
In those 70s and 80s complexes too, a lot of the developers did unfinished basements. So they just have like a laundry room in the basement, which means there's plumbing down there. And a lot of people have illegally put in bathrooms in the basement as well. So that is something to definitely keep in mind when looking at those types of places.
I'm going to try not to bore our listeners about some stats with townhouses and where the market's at and why we're really talking about them. So I'm going to try to get through this pretty quick. But
this is exciting stuff.
Okay. Give me a chance. We got the Real Estate Board released the latest stats for December, which basically is titled "Things Are Crazy." Things are nuts.
I'll let you continue 1 second. I had 4 listing appointments yesterday, and I used the word bananas more than I've ever used a word in one day in my life.
You need to pick a word for every month. Descriptive.
It's hard to, honestly, it's hard to describe. There was a house we had a client offer on last night that got 15 offers. And then the night before in Cloverdale, Adam's client offered on a house in Cloverdale listed at $999, got 50 offers.
That's insane.
I've never seen that before. Anyway, back to townhouses and your stats. Exciting stuff.
So underwhelming stat, but let's mention the home price index, which represents like a typical townhouse in that market. Across the lower mainland, they went up 5.9% in the last 12 months. That percentage doesn't seem to encompass the story that we're experiencing today. So I imagine that stat's going to get into the double digits very quick. But things are up, and
I think it already is. When people are seeing stats online, keep in mind that it's 30-day-old data.
Right, and these home price indexes that the real estate board releases are probably have some flaws.
Yeah.
And if you really want to get a true analysis of where they're going, pick a complex and pick an example, typical property in that complex, and assess where it was selling a year ago versus today. And if you do that, you're going to find that they've gone up much more than 5.9%. So I would say if you look at some of the latest examples, well, hold on, Denny. We've had some offer situations in the last 2 weeks. What would you guess the actual lift is if you took a townhouse today versus 12 months ago?
Oh man, over 10, probably 12 to 15.
So
we have two examples where the prices have climbed almost 10% in 2 weeks. So like we mentioned this previously, but we had that townhouse in Pitt Meadows in Osprey Village that an identical unit the week before sold for $631, and we got 4 offers and sold $675. So what is that? That's $45,000. So that's 7% roughly.
Yeah.
6-7%.
I'll take that math.
In a week?
In a week. Okay. Real estate board. Let's get a week stat for a week left. Yeah. The stats that have come out on a macro level really aren't showing the picture of certain communities like, Tri-Cities and, anywhere in the city that we're working.
Monica had that sale in up Heritage Mountain in Port Moody.
Yes.
Last week.
Forest Parkway.
Last week. That it still has an accepted offer, I think, subject removals tomorrow, but it is significantly higher than the highest sale ever in that complex.
In my research for this podcast, Denny, I looked at the sales history in that complex, and there was a lot of 600,000 range sales.
Yeah.
And we both know her sales crushing that.
It's in the high sevens.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about just some medium price points just so you have an idea of how much these cost. And Danny's going to do a great job on the spot of helping you visualize what that looks like.
Oh, that's exciting.
Okay. So I think the medium price points for townhomes, I think reflect probably, in my opinion, an average 3-bedroom. But just to give you an example, the medium price point in Coquitlam is higher than Burnaby. And that's just an anomaly of a stat. And I think that's due to the fact that Coquitlam skews towards larger and newer townhouses and Burnaby skews towards smaller townhomes. Not necessarily, in some cases older, and in some cases like Simon Fraser University area, there's leasehold land, so those are discounted a little bit as well. And the foothills of Simon Fraser has some lower priced townhomes as well. So
that comment you just made does shock me a little bit, to be honest. The average price point is higher in Coquitlam.
Median. I use median. But
okay.
I think the average would be as well. So median I like just because it's less likely to be skewed.
Yeah.
But just to give you an example, median as of December for Burnaby, for a townhouse in Burnaby was $812, and the median for Coquitlam was $839.
Yeah.
So what would an $812 townhouse look like in Burnaby East versus Brentwood Park? Two completely different stories, right?
Totally different. In Brentwood Park, most of what the townhouse market looks like there is the townhouses attached to strata buildings, whether it's a 4-story with 12 townhouses or a tower with 12 townhouses. So higher strata fees, smaller units, 2 and 3 bedroom units that are 900 to 1,300 square feet versus what other neighborhood?
Well, yes? I mean, 812 is going to get you probably under 1,000 square feet, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So versus, let's call it Mulberry off of
Cumberland.
Yeah.
I've seen a few of those recently, and you get well over 2,000 square feet in the 800 to 850K range.
And just on a price per square foot basis, they're like, I think a lot of them are low 400s or so, and that's pretty similar to a lot of Tri-Cities.
Totally.
So for $839 in Burnaby East, it might be a 1,800 square foot place, maybe more depending on the age.
Yeah.
Brentwood, you're looking smaller. Poco, median sale price of a townhouse, $647. What does that look like, Denny? What does a $647 place look like to you in Poco?
Man, we've I guess basically just based on personal experience, we've been in that Ranger Lane Fremont Village complex quite often in Port Coquitlam in the last 12 months. And what you get there is a 2-bedroom, sometimes den, sometimes 3-bedroom in that $650,000 to $700,000 range with a 2-car garage. Those units are anywhere from 2013 built to 2018 built. It's a great complex. There's a ton of new amenities around. And if we're making predictions for 2021, I think that type of project, that type of complex with those amenities in that kind of neighborhood is going to climb quite a bit this year.
Speaking of Ranger Lane, because this was one of our it might be overlooked. It might be an area you don't consider, but it is a great Ranger Lane is Fremont Blue and Fremont Indigo that were built by Mosaic a few years back. They're newer. And I'm putting Denny on the spot here, but I actually did some pre-research on this topic. So to give you specifics, Ranger Lane is newer. 1,200 to 1,700 square feet is the range that most of them fall. And that means on the lower of that, you're 700,000, which is above the median sale price a little bit. Yeah. So the entry level to those is 700K now, I would say. And then they've been selling upwards of 900, but it's probably going to get higher moving forward.
Some specific examples there. I'll get more specific.
Get specific.
Than that, Jamie. In 2019 and early 2020, the lower end stuff there, so the 2-bedroom that's 1,250 square feet, we're selling in the 625 to 650 range, which is a pretty good value. I looked at the last sale in there, and it was a little larger. It was 1,350 square feet, and it was 747. So in 12 months, that complex for the entry level stuff has gone up. What's that? 10%.
Yeah, I recognize
8 to 10%. Yeah.
The number that I just shared, that 1,200 to 17 and 700,000 starting price point, that's for 3 bedrooms, not 2. So you're basically a newer 5-year-old 2-bedroom is the median sale price of a Poco townhouse. And the nice thing about Ranger Lane in Poco, it is close to a bunch of shopping and amenities, but it backs on to kind of as a green belt park trail system, Poco Trail and the river. So you can get away from it pretty quick. Where should we evolve here next? I want
to hear your stats on sales because that kind of blew me away.
Right, I got distracted here. Okay, sales. It hadn't gone through median. Okay, so median Poco median was 647. Maple Ridge Pitt Meadows median was 585. So that's the most affordability. Okay. While we're in that Maple Ridge Pitt Meadows zone, I know you've had some recent experience out there. How about you share one of your favorite areas out there in what you've recently sold? Yeah,
we just kind of touched on it. Osprey Village is a really cool, very desirable young family neighborhood right on the river. There's a pretty cool walking trail along the river. There's a little village there with shopping, and there's like a salon and a coffee shop. There's a new construction project across the street from this. So most of Osprey Village, the townhouses there, 2 to 3 bedroom, similar to Fremont, what we just talked about, but 5 to 7 years older. So the one that we sold was 2007. And I just mentioned the previous sale a week before sold 631. We sold 675, literally 6 days later. And across the street, so that was a 2-bedroom townhouse. That was 2007, 13 years old, with some nice updates, but 2-bedroom.
Sorry, 2007?
2007 built.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Across the street, you get brand new construction, and I don't know if these are going to be around very long, and maybe they're not even around anymore, but I helped someone buy a brand new 3-bedroom, 2-car garage, better amenities than Osprey Village for $655.
Wow. So is that at Nature's Walk? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
It's probably going to be sold out pretty quick based on these stats. Totally. So that was that. Let's just kind of paint the picture here for a moment. That was approximately 3-bedroom, 2 garage. How big?
1,375 square feet.
Okay. And price point $650 plus tax?
$650 plus GST.
Let's call it, let's just say $700,000 for a new 3-bedroom townhouse out that way. What does $700,000 that's in Maple Ridge or Pitt Meadows? Pitt Meadows. In Poco at Ranger Lane, $700K is probably getting you a 2-bedroom, not a 3-bedroom now.
Yeah.
And then if we were to get to that similar new townhouse in Port Moody, what does $700K even like, or I guess what would be the equivalent of that Osprey Village style townhouse in Port Moody?
Brand new?
Yeah. Well, it's apples to apples. Let's kind of.
I just bought one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how much did you pay?
$950.
So $950 versus $650.
Yeah.
Or $700 essentially. Or you say $950 plus tax?
Yeah.
Okay. So
It'd be just under $1 million.
So essentially $1 million in Port Moody, prime location, upcoming popular suburb versus Nature's Walk. It's about a $250,000 or $300,000 difference.
Yeah.
Is that what we?
So the one that I liked, which is the one I got, had a 2-car garage, which I really liked and put a lot of value on. But there is another complex. There's a couple townhouse complexes that are being built right now that are going to be done in about a year. That entry level price point for 3-bedroom that has underground parking, no garages, $829. So $829 plus tax. What's that? $860 ish.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the entry level for new, compared to $700 in Pitt Meadows.
Yeah. So it might seem like a big jump, but you're paying to be in the city. And just put it in perspective, North Van is much more expensive.
Totally.
So if we're talking about, wow, Port Moody's $1 million, well, maybe Pitt Meadows is $700. I think the equivalent North Van is north of 1.1 and probably closer to 1.2. And if it's in Lonsdale, it's definitely, it might even be more than that in Lonsdale. So depends on where.
I think it's higher. I just sold someone into a condo off of 3rd, just kind of east of Lonsdale, and the condos were about $1,100 a foot.
Yeah, that goes into my next stat, Dan.
Yeah.
The median price point for a new North Van townhouse was basically $1.1 million.
Yeah, so I think that new construction 3-bedroom North Van would be like 1.3, 1.4.
Yeah, if it's down on that Lonsdale, absolutely. Yeah. East Van, okay, so North Van was 1.1 and East Van was 1.188. And I think, East Van is going to have some expensive townhomes in the Mount Pleasant area, but we're talking about East Van is a big mix. You have Champlain Heights on the more affordable side, and then you have Mount Pleasant on the more expensive side. So, Denny, sales ratios were insane. And sales ratios, we're going to talk about this because it kind of gives us a guide of where the inventory is going, where the market's going. And if in a market, if for a period of time, 20% of the listings are selling in a given month, that's like the threshold of prices starting to climb. And the sales ratios...
Can we reiterate that?
Yes.
20% is where prices start to climb. These stats, Tammy's asked to tell you right now, are going to blow your mind.
It means like if 1 out of 5 listings are selling in a given month, that's the beginning of like a seller's market, right? And let's start with Burnaby. So 20% upward for a period of time. Now, December is a bit of a skewed month because it's not known to be a listing month. And in a market like this, it's kind of expected that the sales ratio would be high. That would be more sales than listings. But let's start with Burnaby. And I'm going to talk about December and November because I think back-to-back months, this sets the tone for where we're going. But Burnaby, November, 71% sales ratio, December, 119%. So that's basically a fall where almost everything that was getting listed was selling, and December, the inventory was diminishing. Coquitlam, November, 80% sales ratio, December, 131. New West, 117% sales ratio in November, and December was 169. And in Pomo, Port Moody, 136% in November and 211% sales ratio in December. That is just basically saying that listings are diminishing. The thing about New West and Port Moody is the supply is low and the number of sales is low, so it's a bit of a skewed data, but Burnaby and Coquitlam have pretty impressive stats as well.
Totally.
So what does that say to us? It means that there is less supply, and based on the experiences, there is the same or if not more demand, and that means that this feels like a climb is coming.
Totally. I think that is the big thing to draw attention to is just the supply is so low right now. So those numbers sound ridiculous, saying 169% of listings are selling. What does that even mean? That means that 70% more than listings. If, like in Port Moody, for example, there is currently 16 townhomes available for sale, 14 of which are 3-bedroom. And in December, there was how many sales? 19, did you say? I think you said 19.
Yeah, it was 19, yeah.
So there's more selling
and
per
in November
month than is available.
Yeah. Where are they? And just to touch on this by the number of sales, because I think if your criteria is townhouse and you're flexible in the city to choose, it's good to know where the supply exists. So from October to December, this is just some numbers, but hopefully you get the gist of where we're going with this. So Burnaby and Coquitlam do have good selection, and both of them sold in the low 200s. And Carl, I see you taking notes. I'll share my notes with you, okay? But Burnaby had 214 sales from October to December for townhouses. Coquitlam was 212. Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows was 217. Vancouver East was 200. So all those communities have a very similar amount of townhomes available this fall. So from where there's less available, like Port Moody specific is a very desirable spot. Tri-Cities as a whole had 368. So good selection in the Tri-Cities as a whole, but in Port Moody itself had 69 sales in those 3 months, October, November, December.
In 3 months.
In 3 months, 69 townhouse sales. And New West had 70 townhouse sales. So New West and Port Moody have similar offerings, but keep in mind New West townhouses are largely in Queensborough.
Yeah.
So it doesn't quite feel like the north of the Fraser side of New West.
Yeah. And then half of them that are in New West proper have age restrictions.
Yes, so, they do. Fraser View area, yeah.
The available townhouses for young families in New West is very, very limited.
Yes. Good point, Denny. If you're looking at older townhouse complexes and it looks too good to be true, the price looks too good to be true, don't think you can change that age restriction. It is probably age restricted.
I think people have been trying for a long time. It hasn't worked yet.
We get Greater Vancouver data, so we don't get data for Surrey or Langley come to our email, but I imagine those numbers would, Surrey particularly would have astronomical townhouse numbers, and Langley too. So they'll get notable mentions with no data.
We had someone, maybe not super specific data, but we had someone looking for a two-bedroom townhouse in Langley. And we showed them probably 8 properties, but we had to contact probably 60 to 70 listings to get 7 or 8 showings. Like everything that you talk to has an accepted offer. It was ridiculous. And Langley has a ton of product. It's just inventory, I guess, a little bit low, and it's a hot product.
I'm going to put a... Denny, do you think in Port Moody in the fall, October... Or so let's say 2020, Port Moody 2020. Do you think there was more detached house sales or more townhouse sales? What's your guess?
I think it's pretty close.
Pretty close?
I am going to say detached 5%.
Nope. Townhouses beat them. Well, sorry, they call it attached, but that is largely townhouses. So there was 228 townhouse sales in Port Moody last year and 218 detached house sales. So just to give you, like every city is built a little bit differently. Port Moody is a townhouse-ish city. New West, for example, is a condo city, far more condos than other property types. So every city does have something different to offer. And in New West, north of the Fraser, you're more likely to run into small townhouse complexes getting developed in the future, whereas out in Tri-Cities, Maple Ridge, Langley, they're going to be much larger.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about just... where do we think some of the best options are? Where are some of our... Let's share some stories. Let's share some of our favorites. So we brought this up at our team meeting yesterday, and we got a long list, from the team. So I kind of thought I'd go through this and kind of talk about, what's popular. And this is going to be more focused on Tri-Cities, but we'll try to touch on some other markets. So specific complexes to kind of keep an eye out. One that came to mind on what's popular out in Port Moody would be 100 Klahani, Klahani Drive. Everyone knows the Klahani development. It's in Port Moody Center, built by Polygon in, I think, 2005. Incredible amenities at the Canoe Club. Kids running the streets, ruling the community. Largely 3 bedrooms, not the largest layouts, but good size, 1,300 square feet to 2,000 square feet. And the price range is there right now around 900 to 1.1.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah.
Denny, do you have any favorites, or let's say what might be, how about you share, because you were involved in one, and I think that would be good. Do you want to talk about Forest Park, or is there another one that you'd like to share? You shared Osprey Village, but your turn. Pick a sale or pick a complex.
Okay. Are you going to talk about Portside after? I think we're going to talk about Portside too. Yeah, Forest Parkway is really cool mid 2000 or early 2000s. A lot of 2 bedrooms, some 3 bedrooms. There's a couple different addresses up there, up Heritage Mountain. They are super desirable. They have attached garages. They have pretty good layouts, and there isn't a ton of turnover. So they just don't come up very, very often. Like we kind of briefly touched on, we have an accepted offer on one right now that is hopefully going to set a record for that complex. And that just sets the new precedent moving forward for 2021. So the next time something lists in there, people are going to look at this most recent sale, setting the record. And based on how low inventory is, it probably beats it.
I think I should mention, yes, some of these lesser known complexes that we'll talk about there's not many sales in them. You know, you might have 4 units sell in a given year. So we're kind of teasing you a bit with these great options that may not come available. I'll fly through some of this stuff. I mean, if you're looking for a big townhouse, a good complex to keep an eye on is 101 Parkside, treetops up Heritage Mountain. They're built in the early 90s. They're like a duplex style. They're huge. Some of them are upwards of 3,500 square feet. So the range of sales in that complex, they go from 1,600 to say 3,500 square feet, and price range 800 to 1.4. You know, those big ones they feel like more of a house. They're more functional than most homes in Port Moody.
Totally.
So 101 Parkside, 2,200 panorama. This was brought up by Monica on our team. Quest, Heritage Woods, up the hill, built in 2005. A mix of 3 and 4 bedrooms. Price range 800 to $1 million-ish, 1,400 to 2,300 square foot range.
Yeah.
When we brought up with the team yesterday about lesser known complexes around Port Moody or Tri-Cities that people might be not keeping an eye on where they might get more value. Some of the favorites that came up was keep an eye on Brookside Drive in Port Moody, 1970s built, well-maintained exterior, but more affordable because they're older. The ranges can vary quite a bit there depending on if they're renovated or not, but it's in Port Moody Center. It's close to largely everything, so it's a great location. And then for value that, if you want that Port Moody lifestyle, but not seeing that the options come up and you want to be relatively close, I think a good alternative to Port Moody that might be overlooked is Falcon Drive in Coquitlam. And they're 1980s complexes on the 1100 block of Falcon, mostly 3 bedrooms, more affordable, like start 600 to say 850 range price points for now. And also between Falcon Drive and say Ioko or Suterbrook, the heart of Port Moody there, is this future Coronation Park community plan development, which I think could have a lot of, should have a ton to offer, maybe in 20 to 40 years, depending on how long it takes to get built. But Falcon, Monica and Lucas on our team, they brought up these places and thought, they often get overlooked and you might want to consider them. So just a moment. If you want to understand Port Moody or you want to get a glimpse of Port Moody lifestyle, check out, you can find them on our website or check out Monica, Lucas, Pomo Life BC on Instagram.
Yes.
But anyway, we're very findable. Just look Monica, Lucas on our website. They know that area very well, and they've seen a ton of townhouses, so they had a lot to share.
I think one of the reasons they mentioned that is because it has a Coquitlam address. So a lot of people that are looking in Port Moody is a super desirable city right now, and a lot of people that are looking in Port Moody search only in Port Moody. Yeah. And this is literally across the street on the of the barrier or border between Coquitlam and Port Moody. It's a little less walkable, a little bit farther away from amenities, but you get a lot of space and pretty good units for, what did you say, 650 to 850 in there? Yeah. Yep. So comparatively to Klahani, you're getting a similar unit in Klahani for 950 to $1 million, and on Falcon you're getting a very similar unit for 800. Yeah.
And I think we should kind of recognize that these 80s built townhouses or these older, they don't always look pretty. They're, if you're say in your 20s or 30s or younger and you're used to new, you drive up to these complexes and they might look a little bit grungier or just not what you anticipated when you look at, say, what Mosaic puts out with their new townhouses. Yeah. Recognize the people that are buying them, it's young families. It's a different crowd. The people that need that space may not reflect what the exteriors look like, is basically it. So the dynamic of some of these complexes is changing. And young professionals from Vancouver even, maybe even people from Kitts are starting to consider these townhouses out in Port Moody. I always find it funny when people from Kitts have to leave Kitsilano and we have to, go through that motion with them.
The demographic of a lot of these complexes has really changed in the last 5 years too. There's one off of Government Road in North Burnaby, kind of Production Way area, that is on Horn Street. We've sold a few in there over the years. I remember when I got into real estate, Jamie, those were in the mid 400s. They're like 1,800 square foot, 1970s built. So exactly what you're talking about. The exteriors are not super pretty, well maintained, but not anything aesthetically pleasing. And we sold one in the fall for $875. It's a lot of space. You're getting 1,800 square feet in a pretty good location, walkable to SkyTrain, Lougheed Mall, and parks. It's just aesthetically, in slow markets, some people can't get over that. Whereas in the last few years in busy markets, people are just, dying for the extra space, and a complex like that has a big run.
I can't right now visualize a market where townhouses become dead.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that mainly because the markets we work in, there's not enough of them, and there's not enough being built. Mm-hmm. So a lot would have to change, but it could happen. Interest rates, things could happen that could get in the way. Let's talk about some of our latest experiences outside of the Tri-City areas that might be overlooked. Portside. Mm-hmm. I was at the meeting. We've had a few of our members on our team sell there. Was it 3 units that we've sold?
Yeah, and we're showing another buyer.
Another one there.
Week. Yeah.
So I was bragging because I was the first in, and I thought we had the best unit sold. And then Adam Senek on our team, he said, "Oh yeah, really? You think so?" and made me question it. So they have these awesome waterfront units that are like duplex style townhouses. They do offer smaller ones as well, but the 4 bedrooms are the larger ones, are on the water, and they're great, and they're say around $1,050,000, I believe.
Yeah.
This is built by Anthem. It's being built right now, and I believe they're scheduled to be complete in 2021, possibly with a 2022 phase. Yeah. And this is in Queensborough, Port Royal area at the tip of Queensborough. Yeah, they look great. And I think a lot of people that live in that little community seem to like it. It's a little bit detached, but it feels like a little bit of a paradise in a busy city.
The product is quite a range in that complex, which I kind of like. The finishes look really good. The layouts are pretty good. We sold, Jamie and Adam sold the upper end units, which were around $1,050,000, 4 bedroom, 2,000 square feet-ish. And then we also sold the entry level price point, which is kind of a good comparison. This was pretty similar what you get in Ranger Lane, pretty similar what you get at Nature's Walk in Pitt Meadows for $649. So it's 2 bedroom, like 1,200 square feet with a 2-car garage, which is pretty good value, being, right in the middle of the city. Queensboro's one of those weird areas where it has a stigma because it has a bridge going to it, right? So we sell quite a bit in Queensboro. We talk to a lot of people over there, and they say out of 30 days in a month, 1 day a month roughly has bad bridge traffic. That's what I've heard. Yeah. So most of the time, getting across to New West or into Burnaby, if you're working in Vancouver or wherever, is not really an issue. But once a month, there's some traffic on the bridge, which is kind of frustrating.
Oh, it can be an absolute bottle jam. Yeah. Speaking of Queensboro, if you're if you don't need a 3-bedroom, but you want luxury. I'm teeing Denny up for this one, by the way. Where would you buy, Denny? And what have you sold that fits my bill?
Let me think about that for a second. We did a pretty fun video with that one.
Yeah.
There is
maybe plug the address so people can Google it if they want to see it.
210 Salter. It's one of the nicest buildings in New West. It was done really, really well by Aragon. There are maybe 12 to 14 townhomes attached to a tower there. They're concrete frames, so you're not going to get noise in between units. The layouts are fantastic, pretty high-end finishes, and they're literally on the river. So the views are stunning. We sold a 2-bedroom in there that was 1,300 square feet for the highest priced townhouse, regardless of how many bedrooms, in Queensboro ever. On MLS.
That was Townhouse 211, 210 Salter. Mm-hmm. If you look that up, that's the closest video we've done to like $1 million listing style video. In the spirit of talking about New West, Adam, just looking at value, a couple complexes that may be overlooked. Adam from our team mentioned Mayview Circle in the Burnaby East area. Oh no, sorry, Mayview Circle is in Burnaby South. It's a very low-density townhouse complex built in the 80s. One Arbor Lane is what it's called. And then off Mulberry, 7488, 7465 Mulberry. Larger townhomes, good value, lower price per square foot, much lower compared to the new. Yeah. So that's, Adam's been more involved in the New West Burnaby side of our townhouse situations lately. Denny, I got through all my townhouse notes, believe it or not. There's 4 pages of this stuff.
Nobody can ever tell you that you are unprepared.
I think maybe just kind of wrap it up with just some future thoughts. Like right now, there's clear frustration for buyers looking for townhouses due to the availability, but there will be more to come as we get into spring and summer. The future of townhomes, more likely to exist, more options to exist further east. So cities like Langley, Surrey, Maple Ridge, Abbotsford, that's where the supply of them is growing. And in inner cities like New West, say Burnaby, East Van, they'll trickle. They will increase in supply, but I think there's a clear need for cities to incentivize more. And every city's in a different situation, but I can speak for, say, New West, for example. There is a lot of land that is zoned for townhouses in the future, but due to there's clearly not enough construction, which means that the zoning is not giving away enough. I think there could be a little more density, and I think other cities are probably in a similar situation. So this is not going to go away. If cities could, I've seen 0.91 FSRs, which means that if you have a 6,000 square foot lot, you could build 6,000 square feet of townhouses. I think you should build 8,000 square feet of townhouses. Let's think of the future. So the ask is, any city officials listen to this, let's push those townhouse zonings. We need more of it.
100%.
Denny, I think hopefully we've added some value for people thinking of townhouses in their life.
We basically just shared everything there is to know about townhouses.
All right. Thanks for listening.